Which Packers are most likely to win awards this season? We discuss some odds and betting surrounding the Packers. You won't want to miss this episode.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm cash.
Welcome in, Sounds Gouda. Thank you. Another episode. Really appreciate you guys coming back. I am Rob Ralph. Beside me is my co-host Jordan Olson. Appreciate the returning listeners, everyone coming back. Know that every Thursday we have new episodes coming out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. So for today, just talking a little bit about some awards, possible awards for the Packers, some different types of odds, and some betting stuff. So just some different types of philosophies, and this isn't the only kind of way of how we go about this. Everyone's kind of has their own little bit of method to their madness, so to say. But for me and someone who lives in a state that doesn't have legalized gambling, which is probably to my benefit, I'm a little bit of a degenerate, to say that loosely. I had a friend, my buddy, came over from Boston not too long ago, and we just shot it all on some NHL finals bets and some NBA finals stuff mixed in there. We had 4, 5, 6 leg parlays, and we lost a bunch. But you know what? All you needed to do was hit one, and we hit one on literally the last bet on the last night he was here. So that's just some of the ways that I kind of go about it. So a little bit more willing to just be out in the open. If something sounds good or someone's got a good feeling, we're going to go for it. Other people might not have those philosophies.
Yeah, I kind of fall in the camp of like this episode is really kind of taboo for me because I don't bet on the Packers. At times when I have put my money where my feelings are, it's often resulted in a player getting hurt. Or it always seems to be that I'm like, that's great odds. Somebody's going to be MVP. And, if I were to place a bet on a player like that, it always seems like they get hurt. They fall short of expectations. So I try to stay off of betting on the guys on my teams. I also have worked a job and a career at different points in time where, sports betting isn't something that I've been able to do. So I'm not a big bettor, not a big gambler, but I'm always intrigued by these odds. And, more so than anything, Vegas is really, 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 really good at what they do. So these odds are a pretty strong indication of how they rank and feel what percentage or opportunity these players have to do well in the season and win awards. So always interesting to review, especially going into the season. So we got a pretty exciting episode. We're going to talk about some of these players' odds to win these awards, and then maybe tell you if you are inclined to bet or you don't have the same fear that if you put a bet down on one of these players that they're going to tear their ACL in week 8 and then not finish the season like I do, maybe you can put some money down or, just enjoy this conversation with us. So why don't we get started by talking about MVP here? So obviously, really the only guy into consideration for the Packers and MVP, NFL MVP is Jordan Love. We pulled these numbers all from FanDuel. We could have pulled from different sports betting websites or agencies. And really just for the sake of today's discussion, we went down FanDuel and we pulled all these odds from there. So you might find better odds somewhere else. By the time you listen to this, these odds might change. But right now, these are current odds on FanDuel. So
yeah,
Jordan Love.
DraftKings could be different. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Jordan Love for MVP plus 1,400. I think that when we looked at this list, he was like 5th or 6th on this list. I think Patrick Mahomes and some others are ahead of him. But I think he's right in the mix. We talked about this in our quarterback episode. Where does Jordan Love fall in? We both had him in that like 6 or 7 range, which I certainly think if he hits the high end of his expectations this season, that he could be in the conversation for MVP. And if that's the case, we probably had a really good season. So I don't know, Rob, how do you feel about Jordan Love's odds at 14 plus 1400 for MVP this season?
So I will thoroughly admit that I am a degenerate when I get in the right situation with the right people, but I'm also not stupid. So, facts versus feelings. You want to go ahead and do as much research on this stuff as possible, determine the best data, the best, trends, analysis, all that sort of stuff, but also just base it off your gut feeling. Like, do you think that this is absolutely realistic? I would be absolutely shocked if Jordan Love. I would be pleasantly surprised. I'd be so happy. I would eat my words and whatnot. But this isn't a bet that I would take realistically. Now, is he ascending? Can he get up there? Could he win it in the next 2, 3, 4 seasons? Absolutely. I just don't think that that's going to happen this year. And I think that the betting and the results with having, 5, 6 players ahead of him, including Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, etc., doesn't equal out to be a logical bet for me.
Yeah, just to give you those odds too ahead of him. So Patrick Mahomes at plus 500, Josh Allen at plus 800, CJ Stroud at plus 1,000, Joe Burrow at plus 1,000, and Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts are both, I guess, tied in this case with Jordan Love at plus 1,400. So all quarterbacks on the list, all quarterbacks that are expected to potentially take their team to the Super Bowl this year. That's the expectations for those teams. So, yeah, I don't know that, putting a big bet down for Jordan Love to win MVP is where I would be at and feel safe, but it'd certainly be fun to put some money down and see how that would play out this season. So,
yeah, I would easily eat my words if that's the case, because if he's winning MVP, there's a good chance he had a really awesome season and hopefully made it far in the playoffs. So
maybe one of those like small bets where you put a unit down, like whatever your standard, for bettors out there, what your standard betting unit is, $5, $10, $20. Maybe if your unit's
it's
larger
all different
than that,
for everybody.
You probably have a much larger income than a couple of guys like Rob and I. But fun to put down and see where it shakes out. So transition into coach of the year. So we've got Matt LaFleur at plus 1,600 odds for coach of the year. So Rob, how do you feel about those odds, and would you take them?
So this one is pretty intriguing to me. I know he's gotten close within the last couple of years. So I think that this one has some merit. Now, I will say last year, kind of having that kind of bounce back season after the struggle the first half of the season is like a really good like merit for giving somebody coach of the year, turning a team around that has brand new wide receivers, rookie wide receivers, brand new tight ends, etc. So it might be a little bit more difficult this year, quote unquote, being established if we're still assuming that the team is going to be ascending the way that they should from where they left off. But I think he's a really, really good coach. I think he's got, time to develop these plays and these types of schemes. So I think this year he's going to have some more tricks in his bag. Now, is he going to win it? I have no idea, but there's a good chance he could probably get top 3, top 5. And for a small unit or two, I might take a little dabble in that. That kind of intrigues me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, guys ahead of him on the list right now. Jim Harbaugh at plus 900, Raheem Morris at plus 1,000, Matt Eberflus at plus 1,000, D'Amico Ryans plus 1,400, Shane Steichen plus 1,400, and Jonathan Gannon at plus 1,500. So,
hold on. Okay, Jim Harbaugh is the leader in that pack? Really? I'm sorry. I just
I would
okay. So
imagine that Vegas thinks that Jim Harbaugh is some kind of magician, and that with the talent that the Chargers have, that he's going to turn that team into a 10-win team. And if that's the case in year one, then they probably, there's a pretty strong case for Coach of the Year. The Matt Eberflus at plus 1,000. I mean, they're gonna see incremental win their win total increase. I mean, I still stand by. I think that they're going to get 9 wins this season, which means I think they improve their win total by plus 3 from last year, which that's a big step in the right direction for them. Probably puts them in the playoffs. But they're gonna need to probably produce more than that for Coach of the Year. He's probably going to need to get in that 10, 11 win category. That's a little bit there. I find Eberflus in a similar situation to where Matt LaFleur was last year. And I don't think 9 wins and a playoff berth is going to get you there. Because if we all remember, the Packers' expectations were pretty low going into last season. And even though we were all pretty excited about how the season ended, I think, getting to a little higher win total and not having that midseason lull would have really helped out Matt LaFleur's odds last season. So what do you think Matt LaFleur needs to do to put this award or this trophy on his mantle this year, Rob?
yeah, obviously win games. I think any NFL team is going to have some adversity. So, getting through that adversity, that's why I brought up last year as a prime time example of doing that and being in consideration. Doing well, keep on ascending, right? Just taking this offense to a completely new level. I think obviously that'll help. Winning over your win total, winning some tough games, taking your team into the playoffs, even though I think that Coach of the Year is more for in season, right?
Yeah, all of these awards are determined by their regular season play, and the postseason is not taken into consideration. So, a playoff berth, I think, might be considered, or your standing, winning a division. But winning 2 or 3 playoff games are not going to have an impact on this outcome because the votes are in at the end of the regular season. So, for me.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna say, like, well, yeah, what happens if Jordan Love gets injured a game or 2 or 3, right? But you're still able to win 1 or 2 of those games. I don't know, right? Like, but with a backup quarterback, that would be impressive on the resume too as well. I don't want that to happen. I'm just saying that would be really good in the eyes of the voters too, I think. Go ahead.
Interesting side note there that we'll talk about offensive rookie of the year later, but Michael Pratt's odds are plus 15,000 for that. And I would assume that they're only even that high and he's even that on the list because they think that there's a potential if Jordan Love does have an extended injury, 4, 5, 6 games, that he could come in and win 3 or 4 of those games and maybe keep the Packers on track. So, if Matt LaFleur were able to help a Michael Pratt-led team through a situation like that and find a way into the playoffs still, absolutely, if the Packers win 12 games this year, if they win their division, if they have one of the top offenses as a play caller, those are all situations where he could find himself Coach of the Year. I also think that there's pretty good odds for this because he's been somebody that has been highly regarded throughout the league. There were questions about his ability because he was tied to Aaron Rodgers for a long time.
Right.
And now if he can win the division without Rodgers and really, as you said, continue that ascent, I think he's got a pretty strong case. So
I want to also mention here too, and I think this might almost be 50% of it, but it's also the story, as you were alluding to, right? Like the drama in it. Like Jim Harbaugh, was successful with the 49ers, right? And then he goes to Michigan, and then he wins the national championships. Now he's coming back to LA, and he's got Justin Herbert, who's got all the talent in the world. And if he turns that around, he's going to win Coach of the Year. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, half of this is the stats and your titles and division and what you do, but half of it is also the story that's along with this, right, as well. Like Shane Steichen, like Anthony Richardson, like he got injured, he looked really good for the first 3-4 games, but if Anthony Richardson comes back and he's steaming along and he helps that team, that's the story that helps build kind of this case along with all the other stats and the wins and all that sort of stuff too. So that's just something I wanted to emphasize.
Yeah, so jumping into offensive player of the year, there's really about 4 Packers on this list that could garner some serious consideration. Jordan Love at plus 6,000, Josh Jacobs at plus 8,000, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson both at plus 15,000. So who do you like on this list, Rob, if you had to put your money, so to say, on one of these players for offensive player of the year?
Just a degenerate's best dream, this episode. Well, I mean, already talking about Jordan Love for MVP, right? So a little bit less odds on him winning Offensive Player of the Year, which could totally happen. Jaden Reed, arguably our number one wide receiver last year, at least the statistics would say that. Christian Watson on here too. If he can stay healthy, there's a really good case for him too as well. But Josh Jacobs plus 8,000 is the one that's pretty intriguing to me. Again, the story, had the really good year 2 years from before. Then went into last year with Oakland, and that offense was pretty much a dump. We all know what happened with the coaching staff, offensive line, loading up the box. Him not showing up to training camp, blah, 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 blah. That's the story, as I was alluding to. And now him coming back, signing with the Packers. The Raiders didn't want him, or maybe they just didn't offer him enough money. Comes back, has a really good season. I don't know if he's going to be the workhorse, but getting the necessary yards, getting the necessary touchdowns, getting the strong yards after contact, getting those 3rd and 1s, those 3rd and 2s, or those 4th and 1s, and those situational type of plays, and having the stats to go along with his story. I think that there's some real value in sprinkling a unit or two on this Josh Jacobs Offensive Rookie of the Year if he can stay healthy.
Offensive Player of the Year.
Offensive Player of the Year. Yes, sorry.
Yeah. For me, I really throw the wide receivers out of this mix if you're really talking about being serious with your money. I do think that with Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, our tight ends, they're all going to pilfer receptions and statistics from each other, which if there are a couple injuries, Christian Watson gets hurt again, Luke Musgrave gets hurt, and somebody like Jaden Reed really becomes the workhorse of the passing game, you could see that as a realistic possibility. And probably, again, if I'm a betting man, which I'm telling you, I don't bet on Packers players because I'm superstitious, but that'd be one where if you see a couple injuries, maybe that would be mid-season where I jump on, okay, week 4, Christian Watson, I'm really knock on wood, hope this doesn't happen, is out for the season. Then Jaden Reed kind of becomes in play for me as a potential for Offensive Player of the Year because he's going to pick up some slack. But Rob, I agree with you. Josh Jacobs, I like the plus 8,000. I think that if he has a season anywhere near like he had in 2022 in this Matt LaFleur offense, it could be special. And, just to highlight a couple other odds. So we're talking about Jordan Love at plus 6,000, Josh Jacobs at plus 8,000. Leaders right now in this category on FanDuel, Tyreek Hill at plus 800, Christian McCaffrey at plus 900, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson all at plus 1,000. So you can see these odds are significantly more of a long shot than those 5 players that I just named. So Offensive Rookie of the Year. Only 2 Packers really high on this list, and when I say high, really in the radar of being realistic, and that's Marshawn Lloyd and Michael Pratt, as I alluded to, at plus 15,000. Long odds. Do you like either of those bets for offensive rookie of the year, Rob?
Not Michael Pratt, unless there's an injury that happened, and if that's the case, that would really suck. But Marshawn Lloyd, we have had the ups and downs with AJ Dillon. I've alluded to this before in my other podcast, but I think AJ Dillon is going to have a resurgence. He's going to be the best back in the league. No, that's sarcasm, but he's going to be a better back in the league. I'm a true believer in that. But if by chance he's not, I mean, he brings such an Aaron Jones-esque, like lightning quick, sideline to sideline type of playmaking abilities that either Josh Jacobs or AJ Dillon. I mean, Josh Jacobs does. They both do, but you get what I mean. Like, he's a lot more electric, fast, elusive, like Aaron Jones was, and he brings such a different skill set that, like, if an injury were to happen, or if, like, a little bit 4, 5, 6 games into the season, he starts getting kind of that second nod behind Josh Jacobs, and starts producing really well within the system. I mean, plus 15,000. Yeah, I'd sprinkle a unit or two on that, and I think there's a lot of merit for that being able to hit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, but like Jahmyr Gibbs comes to my mind. I think that's like the high upside for what we could see out of Lloyd. And if that happens and he jumps AJ Dillon and he ends up with like 1,000 all-purpose yards and ends up, finding himself racking up touchdowns and big plays at the end of the season, I think that Marshawn Lloyd is definitely in play for offensive rookie of the year. I like it. That might be, as we talk about this, in terms of taking a long shot of betting this season. If you're betting on the Packers, that one I'm really intrigued by. I really am. So, jumping over to the other side of the ball, defensive player of the year, we've got Rashawn Gary at plus 4,000, Jair Alexander at plus 15,000. And Lucas Van Ness, Preston Smith, and Kenny Clark at plus 25,000. So, what do you think about these odds for Defensive Player of the Year, Rob?
Yeah. Well, I would hope that one or two of these hit. My gut feeling, and obviously, facts versus feelings, and based on the data. I know we have a new defensive coordinator this year, but I just don't. It's more of a feeling on this one, but I don't feel like any of these are going to hit. Rashawn Gary's got the best odds. What was that, Jordan? Is he top 10 or top 15 in that, at least? Something like that.
Oh, yeah, let me look, but I think he's pretty far down the list. Micah Parsons is at plus 500, Myles Garrett plus 600, TJ Watt at plus 750. He's like 12th on FanDuel right now in odds.
So 11 players ahead of him. I'd be so happy, but also go ahead.
Sorry, bad. I'm trying to dissect the formatting I'm looking at. He's 16th on the list right now. So there's 15 players ahead of him, or him and Kyle Hamilton have the same odds. So 14 players ahead of that bracket that they're in. So.
Okay, so that makes it an extra no for me. It's just, I would love that, but there's some really, really good players ahead of him on really good teams. It's not a good bet. Now, does the Jair Alexander one at 15,000 with like I don't even want to call it a resurgence. He still is one of the best cornerbacks if he can stay healthy. But if he can stay healthy and he thrives in Jeff Hafley, who is a defensive backs coach historically in the league, like that one has a little bit of some intrigue to me on a unit or two. The Lucas Van Ness, Preston Smith, or Kenny Clark at plus 25,000, you might as well just burn your money if you're doing that.
I think Kenny Clark is going to have a huge season. I think he's going to end up like in this new Halfley system of playing free and downhill. I think he could easily end up with double-digit sack totals. But
Agreed. I just don't think
you're
he's
just
going to
not
be
going to
defensive player of the year.
you're just probably not going to see a guy who's playing, defensive and defensive tackle, whatever he's going to be in this system. Those aren't typically the kind of guys that are going to win defensive player of the year. It's usually an edge rusher, a corner, somebody who really, isn't playing in the trenches, so to say. Rashawn Gary, I hope that he's at the top of this list at the end of the season. He's got the pedigree. We drafted him high. We've just given him the big contract that says, hey, we think you can be defensive player of the year. If he blows up and has a 14, 15 sack season and he is disruptive in this new system, I like the chances there. But I agree, Rob. I think there's too much going on with a new system that it's hard to project one of these being a good bet for this season. But I hope that we're wrong, and I hope that a couple guys on this list are in the running when it's all said and done. So, all right, defensive rookie of the year. So two guys on this list for the Packers: Edgerrin Cooper at plus 3,000 and Javon Bullard at plus 5,000. So, not too long of odds. You like either of these guys, Rob, for that award?
Yeah, and I think his odds just justifies it. But Edgerrin Cooper, just that immediate need for really good linebacker play. And that's just, I mean, Quay Walker has been fine for what he is, but I don't think he's really lived up to his potential yet, right? So if Edgerrin Cooper can come in and can at least have that level of play, if not be better, we'll see how this new system brings to. I'm not exactly sure, how they're going to be blitzing when they're. Obviously, I know the certain downs and situations and that sort of stuff. So I understand the basics and the merits of like defensive play calls and stuff, but just really the intricate details of this defensive system are still going to be really intriguing to me. But if he can play free, if he can play fast like he's supposed to be doing in this new system, both for him and Quay, like imagine if you just had a much better, 3, 4, 5 times Devondre Campbell, right? And not to say like Devondre Campbell was like the worst. Obviously, he didn't have the best season in the last couple of years. But the previous, was it 2 years or 3 years ago, where he was he an All Pro? He did really good for the Packers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Like if Edgerrin Cooper can have that type of season in his rookie year and that type of impact, that is absolutely going to be so important for our defense. And there is a lot of merit for this, put in a unit or 2 or 3. I might even sprinkle a little bit more on this one because, and yeah, it is biased too. I love Edgerrin Cooper. I love this tape. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player. I really hope. But I think he'll have more of a bigger impact than Javon Bullard. And Javon Bullard's on here at plus 5,000. So his odds would obviously indicate that too as well. And Vegas thinks the same thing. So I'm in on Edgerrin Cooper, and I would sprinkle a little bit of money on that.
Yeah, I think I'm out on Edgerrin Cooper unless they use him in a lot of blitz packages, which they very might. But you look at the guys that are at the top of this list. You've got Dallas Turner, Latte Latu, Jared Verse. You got 3 edge rushers at the top of this list in terms of Vegas odds, followed by 3 corners, Quinion Mitchell, Terrion Arnold, Byron Murphy, right? So again, kind of talking about the kind of players that typically win these awards, edge rushers, defensive backs. Edgerrin Cooper is an off-ball linebacker right now, and he's going to have a hell of a season. He's going to have to be used in the blitz game and really make some impact plays, have some forced fumbles to be in consideration. I find it very intriguing that, maybe his odds are higher than Javon Bullard's. I like Javon Bullard as him being a playmaker and him getting to the ball but Xavier McKinney is going to kind of maybe cover a lot of that in this defense too. So I don't know.
I mean,
2 players.
Like just a straight up feeling for me. sometimes a degenerate can't explain it. So I don't know. Maybe more of a hope and just kind of a feeling, but I feel like we could have something special here. Really hope that's the case.
I like both those players and think we could have something special. It's just, in terms of the betting, it's going to take some unique scheming and play calling from Jeff Halfley to put a guy like Edrin Cooper, an off-ball linebacker, in position to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, right? So, but go out, get those bets in, and see, put your money where your mouth is and your feelings are, right? So. And I'm not talking about you, Rob, but our listeners, right? You like any of these, go out and
I'm going to go out right now, and I'm going to go do it. I just got to go to the Iowa borderline here. I'll be back.
So last thing we'll talk about in terms of Packers season betting right now, and we're out of player awards to talk about here, but the over-under total for the Packers 9.5. I think both Rob and I agreed, and we've said it in our schedule breakdown before. We're both projecting more than 9.5 wins. We would smash the over on this. I think we easily end up with 11 or 12 wins and are in contention for our division if everybody stays healthy. So if you like that, go out and get those and take the over on 9.5 wins for the season.
I will say too on that one, it's got minus 130 at least on FanDuel odds. So the odds are against you if you're betting, and they are favored for them to go over 9.5. So,
yeah. So, all right. Well, that is our episode on some season awards and betting odds for those players. It's just kind of fun to have these conversations and start thinking about how this could project into what happens for the Packers this season. So, a couple other closing notes. Not really much Packers news. We're still in that dead period right now. Just a shout out to the Brewers, though. Super happy that our Milwaukee Brewers, for you Wisconsin sports fans out there, are doing well. Have over 50 wins. Yelich and Contreras are all-stars. I'm so happy to see Christian Yelich back to an all-star form. And that Contreras trade that we made is looking like an absolute steal. He's been phenomenal the last 2 years. And I expect, this will come out after the full All-Star team is announced, but I expect Bryce Terang and the phenomenal season that he's putting together with his batting average and his stolen bases to join them on that All-Star team as well.
So Jordan, my question for you, and I know this is the Packers podcast, but do you think that they trade for a starting pitcher?
Yeah, I do, and I'll give you I put a little bit of thought into this, and I'll give you my one guy in the scenario that I really like, but a very Brewers-y type move that gets us a starting pitcher that helps us now and next year is Eric Fetty. I know a lot of people like the other starter from the White Sox, but Fetty's a guy who had an up and down career, more of a down career with the Washington Nationals, went over to the Korean Baseball League, I think won the equivalent of their Cy Young Award over there, and has been really good with the White Sox this year. The White Sox are a train wreck. They're probably going to unload a few players. The other nice thing about Fetty is that he's under control this season and next, and I think he's scheduled to make $15 million in each of these seasons. So if we acquired him right now, we may only have $7 or $8 million left to pay this year. A very digestible contract for the Brewers to take on. And then, who knows what happens next year if Woodruff's healthy. You might have a decent front end of your rotation to go along with this ascending offense they have. So.
Yeah, that'd be 3 very good, solid pitchers, and Peralta, Woodruff, and Fetty. Or Fetty, excuse me.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, put a wrap on it. Thank you again to anybody who subscribed. We don't have everybody's name because they're not all public, but we can thank Julian Woolman for becoming a new subscriber since our last show. So thanks, Julian, for becoming a subscriber. And yeah, spread the word about our content. Again, we have new episodes every Thursday. Thanks for listening. Please share this with your family, your friends, anybody else that you think would enjoy this show. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and comment. Let us know what you think. Maybe give us which one of these bets or odds that you like best for the Packers this season. So, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. As always, you can connect with us on X. Rob, his handle is Robber79. Mine is Olson Jord. You can see that below us down here. But yeah, until next time, Packers Nation, have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night. Go Pack.
See you guys.
Been wanted this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey.